All right, everybody. Welcome back to another professional interview here or today. Here we don't have him here. He's visiting us over the web. Chad Schneckenburger. I always feel like I'm going to really mess up your last name. Yeah,
I said it perfect, man.
yeah. Like even though I know I've said it probably 20 times, like over the since we've met each other and whatnot. But well, how you doing, man?
Good, doing really good. Yeah, just working from home. I've been in the office once in the last year, and that was just to pick up my keyboard, monitors, and office chair. So it's been a big change adapting to this work environment, but it's been good. It's been good.
So why don't you tell everybody real briefly what you do or what your title is and who you work for?
Yeah, so I work for the United States Forest Service in the Rocky Mountain region, which is Region 2, and I am the Regional Trails and Dispersed Recreation Program Manager. So basically what that means is I manage, I like to tell people kind of the middleman, the middle person between our Washington office headquarters and our folks out in the field on the ranger districts in the forest. So basically my job is I just manage anything that has to do with trails, travel management, any type of dispersed recreation, which would include dispersed camping, shooting sports, anything at all that falls with it. And that's quite a bit. Search and rescue, just this is a lot that falls in there right
Yeah.
now. So, yeah.
Well, the first thing I was going to ask is, well, let's go back a little bit. Where are you originally from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ohio. I'm originally from Akron, Ohio, which is northeastern Ohio, and yeah, I grew up there my whole life. My whole family's still there, and went did my undergrad at Appalachian State
Okay.
University in Boone, North Carolina. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, and it's just kind of funny how I ended up there. I really looked at schools all throughout the South, but was pretty sure I was going to go to an in-state school in Ohio. And my mom had heard about Appalachian, and we were taking a trip to the South to visit a couple schools, and she said, "Let's go check this out. I think you're going to like this town and like this school." And I said, "I don't know, whatever,
Uh,
fine, let's go look at it." And as soon as I got to Boone, I just absolutely fell in love with it. Fell in love with the mountains and the university and the campus and just the opportunity to spend some time outdoors. Really appealed to me, especially coming from a more urbanized area in northeastern Ohio. So yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up down there. Yeah.
what did you major in while you were in your undergrad?
Yeah, so it's funny. I majored in political science and communications, public relations, and that was because at the time I thought 100% I was going to go into politics of some sort. I was really involved in governance and student government and all that in high school, and that's what I wanted to do. I had no interest in math or science. Didn't stick with me, but I did in history and politics and how people relate with each other. So that's why I focused on that. And I ended up doing two internships in Washington D.C. One for an organization called a Presidential Classroom, which at the time was a high school civics program, and we'd bring students to D.C. and I'd set them up with appointments with their congressmen and senators and all that, just to meet them. And then I actually had an opportunity to work on the Hill. I spent a summer interning for a congressman from Illinois at the time, who was I got the hookup or the job, I should say, through a connection through my uncle who lived in Aurora, Illinois at the
Okay.
time. And so anyhow, yeah, I just spent some time on the Hill and did that. And really, what that was really enlightening experience because it just told me, what, I don't think this is for me. I just things were started. This was in the mid '90s, and Gingrich's contract with America, and Clinton was, freshly in office, and politics just seemed to get really ugly around that time. And I just decided, as much as I enjoy this, I don't think this is for me really.
Yeah.
Um, so, I didn't really pursue a job in it after that. Yeah, I took some other paths, I should say.
Yeah. So what was your next step?
So after graduation, that was the summer before my senior year. I did that internship, and so after graduation, I took a year off with a good friend of mine from college, my roommate, and we decided we wanted to travel the country. and see the country. I'd done a fair amount of traveling with my parents, but we really wanted to just get out. And our only rule was no interstates. We're going to take the blue highways only, back roads. And within about a year and a half, we had traveled to all 48 lower 48 states. Camped and hiked in, I don't know, 30 plus national parks and multiple national forests and all that, and then spent the winter in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. We were ski instructors for little kids and spent about 7 months there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a life changing and in many respects, but it was good because I needed that time to just take a break from like thinking about my life, and just
Yeah.
go explore the U.S. And but what that did for me on a career track that I didn't realize until much later was spending so much time in national parks and national forests and everything. I kept asking myself, somebody does this for a living. Somebody manages this. Somebody designs and builds these trails. Somebody manages all this fun stuff that I'm doing right now. Boy, wouldn't that be a cool job? And then just kind of left it at that until later on down the road. But yeah, so I spent that year, and then after that winter in Steamboat, I got the idea that I need to go get a real job. It's time to get serious and be a grown up. And so I moved to DC. Well, I moved home for a few months to figure things out with my parents. I had an opportunity to get a job with an environmental consulting firm in Washington, D.C., and
Okay.
I moved out there and did that for a couple years. It was a company we did a lot of work with in the Superfund world, doing a lot
Okay.
of remediation work and redeveloping. My job was really just working on projects where we'd redevelop Superfund sites into something productive, like a golf course or something like that. So
Yeah.
it was my first taste of professional life, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so obviously you didn't stick. You said you was only there for a couple of years. Is when did you go get? When did you go back to school?
Well, that's a good question. So yeah, so I worked for this consulting firm for 2 years. It was called the Marasco Newton Group, and they're no longer around. They got absorbed by a larger group after I left. But when I was there, I had a chance to take a sabbatical, and I traveled around Europe for a few months backpacking because that was sort of a life goal that I spent all this time traveling around the U.S. and I said, you know what, I want to go see Europe, and basically just told my bosses, hey, I'm going to quit to go travel Europe, and they said, oh no, you go, you can have your job when you come back. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so I did that, but when I got back, I started communicating with an old friend from college who lived in Raleigh, and we had both always had a desire to start our own business of some sort. We didn't know what that was, but we wanted to just go forth and conquer the world as entrepreneurs. And we both really wanted to live in Colorado. I wanted to move back there, and he wanted to be there. And so we decided we were gonna move to Fort Collins and start a business. And so I worked another 6 months in my job, and we moved out to Fort Collins in the spring of '99. I guess a long time ago now. Um, and the idea was we weren't sure what we were going to do. We were going to start some kind of a business, but we didn't know what. And that was mistake number one, is we didn't really hone in on a business plan or an idea. But what happened was when we got settled there, we started talking with a business broker, and there was this pizza shop that went up for sale in Fort Collins, and it was basically an asset sale. These guys, it was still open, it was still running, but they were hemorrhaging money and just wanted to get out. So we essentially came in and just bought the assets from them and kept the doors open and ran a pizza shop for a couple years, doing that. And it, like I said, I had hindsight's 2020. Had it done differently, we would have been more focused and had a business plan and all this. But
Yeah.
we just kind of went about it and thought we had great ideas, and didn't really work out well. And we kind of overextended ourselves, and because this was pre-smartphone era, and so everything was, how do you buy a pizza? Well, you pull up a coupon, and the coupon thing that you get in your dorm room or whatever. And
Yeah.
we just overextended ourselves and lost a bunch of money on print advertising, and just decided, this isn't working. So we liquidated the business. But as that was all happening, I started asking myself, the writing was on the wall, and I said, I need to do something. I need to actually figure out what I'm going to do with my life and my political science degree, now that I don't want to work in politics and all that. And I kept coming back to that trip, and I kept thinking, there's somebody that does this really fun sounding stuff, managing national parks and forests and
Yeah.
all that. So I just started hunting around the campus at Colorado State University, and I stumbled into the office of a professor, Dr. Glenn Hawes at the time, and just we just kind of started shooting the bull. And he said, "Where are you from?" "Ohio." "Oh, I went to Penn State." "Well, I'm a Buckeye fan. I grew up in Ohio," and kind of hit it off that way. And I said, I'm just really interested in the policy work behind how we manage natural resources and recreation specifically.
Yeah.
And he said, "Man, this is the program for you. Like this natural resource recreation and tourism program, this human dimensions of natural resources." They had just changed the name at the time. So this is the program for you, man. This is all about recreation, and what I focus a lot on policy. And so he took me on as one of his grad students, and I applied and got in the program, and that's how I ended up getting my master's degree in recreation. So
Yeah. And so, what kind of different what kind of stuff were you involved with during that, your time there? Because I know Dr. Haas has, his hands in many pots, so to speak. He always has a lot going on.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, he does. It's funny. I think it was a transitional time for him too. They were doing restructuring the departments a little bit, and he, I think, was pulling back a little bit. He gave up the department, he was department head for a while, and stepped away from that. And so, I ended up being a TA, a teacher's assistant, and for him and another professor, Dr. Ackerman, who really did a lot of natural resource tourism work.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I really focused on that. I focused on the planning side of it, understanding federal land management agency planning,
Hmm.
what that meant, what it meant to create a plan, what it meant in terms of NEPA and all that. So I focused a lot on that with him, and then a lot on the sustainable tourism side. Even though that really wasn't a program so much at the time at CSU, it is, but kind of just started focusing on that a little bit. But yeah, so I ended up my master's. Dr. Haas ended up leaving the university, and another gentleman came in and took over, and he saw me through my master's degree. But basically, I took his research that he did in Yosemite on crowding in the wilderness, and did my master's thesis on crowding and perceptions of crowding in the wilderness,
Okay,
and
cool.
how people felt about that. So um, yeah, it was an interesting way. It was a really good program, but like I said, it ended up getting me into the career I'm in now. Because it's what I was interested in, and just was bound and determined to find a way. And I was fortunate enough to live in Fort Collins, where there's such a great school, great college of natural resources there. So
What's your favorite pizza?
that's a great question, man. The best kind. Well, it's funny now. Now that I live in Denver, we're always looking for the best pizza, and yeah, definitely thin slice, New York style. I'm pretty much a sausage, mushroom, onion is pretty solid for me.
Okay.
I'll try it all. I like it all, but that's my standby for sure. Yeah.
I tried, not too long ago. I had one that was, green olives, feta cheese, sun dried tomatoes,
Ooh,
and chicken.
yummy, salty and
Yeah.
delicious. It sounds
I
like.
mean, it's whew. You can't find it too many spots, but man, when I do, I'm like that. There's no decision to be made. It's already been made for me.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but I don't know. Like I like all kinds of different pizza. Um, so after you got with your master's degree, where did you go from there?
Yeah, so this was probably one of the more frustrating times of my life, and in terms of jobs and careers, because so yeah, I got my degree. I defended and had to come back and do a few rewrites. Um, so it took me, oh, as I was doing my rewrites, I started applying for positions, and I was
Yeah.
looking for anything recreation related anywhere in the Western United States. Excuse me, Western United States. I was hoping to stay in Colorado, but I was willing to move at the time. And I was looking at local park agencies, state, county, federal, and it took me a good 9 months, I'd say, to get a job. And what it was I just responding and submitting my resume without any internship experience. I wasn't gaining traction. Ultimately, what happened was, I was still communicating with Dr. Hawes, because we
Hmm.
became pretty good friends, and he said, "Hey, I know an old colleague of mine from years ago runs this consulting Collins called EDAW, EDAW, and they do a lot of park and recreation consulting, I'll send them an email and just say, hey, I got a guy you might be interested in.
Yeah.
And so he did. He made the connection for me with a guy named Tom Keith there, who was a principal. And I just said hello, sent my resume, and said, hey, if you ever have anything or need help, I'd be happy to help. Well, a few weeks later, he called and said, hey, we actually do need some help on a project, just on a temporary contract basis. They had it was a big EIS for a power line project in Nevada, and they needed somebody to come in and just do the recreation analysis for it. So do an impact analysis for recreation and kind of characterize the recreation setting and all that stuff you do for federal NEPA work. And so I came on for 3 months to do that, and did a good job, and that just turned into a full-time permanent position with them.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was really, really fortunate, And so I guess it was frustrating because it took me 9 months, and I bet I sent out, no joke, probably well over 100 resumes and responded to 100 applications with no response, no interviews, nothing, So I was just getting really discouraged, not sure what I was going to do. And then this break happened. And, the moral of that story is you can never underestimate the power of your networks and your contacts.
Right.
And I'll say that throughout my entire career, the vast majority of positions I've ended up in have been because of a relationship that I've established over the years. So that's the tale, the message,
Yeah.
the important message in that. Yeah.
How long were you at, as you said, EDAW?
Yeah, I was at EDAW. I was there, that was 2005 to 11, probably about 6 years all told before I came to the federal government. Yeah, and it was awesome. People ask me a lot of times, what did you like about consulting and not like about consulting? And, one of the best things about that as a job, particularly as a first job right out of school, is that you do all kinds of work. You're exposed to a huge wide range of projects and project work. Everything I did was recreation related. But I kind of split my time between doing master plans, developing park and recreation and open space trails master plans for communities, cities typically. And then the other half was all federal work, doing recreation impact analyses and scenic viewshed analysis and all that for big federal projects. So it was a really cool experience in that respect, that I had to just the exposure. It just gives you a ton of exposure at that part of your career. So, really, really good experience. I think you had Sergio Capozzi on one of your shows as well, and met Sergio. He worked at the same company at the same time. And
okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I didn't realize you worked together at the same time.
Yeah, we did. That's how we met. That's how I got involved in SORP and everything. And
Sergio's good people.
He is good people, man. He's a great guy. Yeah. He worked in Seattle. I worked in Fort Collins, but we would collaborate in projects every now and then, that type of thing. But so yeah, it was a great experience, man. I really, really enjoyed it. It was fun work, but at the end of the day, it wasn't for me, and that's kind of what made me want to make a change. So.
And so you said in 2011 you stepped into the federal government. What prompted you to make that transition, and where did you first step into the federal government job at?
Yeah, so great questions. So really, what prompted me was, the thing about consulting for a larger firm like that, and I don't know how much Sergio got into this, but it's a lot of work. It can be a lot of work, and a big part of your job is finding the next job. Half the time you're a practitioner and doing the work that you were trained for. The other half of the time is, hey, you got to go out and find more work, because you got to keep the work coming in to keep getting a paycheck and the lights on and all that. So I just didn't really like that marketing side of it so much. I just really wasn't. It just didn't appeal to me so much.
Sure.
Some people are just really wired for it, and I wasn't necessarily wired for it. And the other thing that I just wasn't satisfied with is in planning. I love planning, and you do so much good work, and it's so exciting and so fun working with people to come up with a vision and all that. But that's when the job stops. I never got to it in that job, see things through to the management side, to the implementation side.
Yeah.
The project's done, you wipe your hands and you leave it to the client to implement it. And I wanted to participate in that side of things.
Yeah.
And so that's really what was making me think maybe I need to be in government work, in public service of some sort, because that's where I could partake in the implementation side of all that. So I did. So that's kind of, I went along, had ultimately went through some personal stuff and got a divorce, and that kind of forced me to say, hey, now's a good time to kind of look at things career-wise and make a change. And so I had an opportunity again through a connection of Glenn Hawes's, Dr. Hawes's, to go down and teach a semester at the University of Belize. So I took a leave of absence and went down there and taught a few classes at the university for a semester, which was really cool, really eye-opening.
Yeah.
And that was really sort of the lack of a better analogy, the nail in the coffin on consulting for me. That's what made me think, all right, this is it. I need to make a change.
Yeah.
And so when I came back, I just really started applying for federal positions and knew that I would be in a much better position now because I had 6 years of experience under my belt, or 5 years at that point, and just a lot of project experience and contacts and all that. So I started applying for jobs, and I got an interview for a job with the Bureau of Land Management in a small, tiny little town in northwest Colorado called Meeker, and to be their outdoor recreation planner for their field office. And that was it was a 9/11. I got hired in as a GS 11 on that because I had a graduate degree. And that was when I started with the federal government.
Nice.
So
How long were you there?
I was in Meeker for about, let's see, let me think about that. For about 3 years, I was
Okay.
the outdoor rec planner for the office for a year, and then my direct supervisor took another job, and that job came open. So I applied for that and got that job. So I was the assistant field manager for recreation and cultural resources. So I managed our recreation staff and our archaeologists and our GIS program as well. So I was there for 3 years, and then I started doing some details. And in the federal government, especially in land management agencies, doing temporary assignments and detail assignments, they call them, are really, really common. And it's a good way to expand your experience, get different experience in different areas, get experience in supervising people at a higher level or managing a program. So I had an opportunity to come down to Denver to the BLM state office and run the National Conservation Lands program for 4 months. And so I did that. And when I was down there, the person that had the job said they weren't coming back, and they just went into a process of hiring that job. And because I was in the position already, it made it easier for them to hire me, basically.
Yeah.
So, and it was a promotion too. So yeah, that's how I ended up down at the state office for BLM, running the
Yeah.
National Conservation Lands program for the state. So.
And so for a lot of folks, the BLM is kind of they're not quite sure exactly what the BLM does. Could you tell us a little bit about that in general?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's funny. It's the largest land management agency in the country, and no one's
Right.
heard of it. Yeah, it's small but mighty. Let's put it that way. I think there's less than 10,000 total employees that manage 245 million acres, give or take. It's a lot of land area. Really, so the land management history for dummies is it's all the land no one else wanted to manage. That's a grossly simplistic way of putting it, but most of the land, it's all the mineral estate, first of all. So it's all the subsurface mineral estate is managed through there. So anything underground, and that subsurface mineral estate is much larger than 245 million acres. It's
Okay.
probably closer to 600 million acres, but it's public minerals under private surface.
Okay.
The surface area itself is 245 million, give or take. So yeah, but much like the Forest Service, it's public land. It's multiple use. And that's the charge. It's to be managed for all types of uses. And so the primary uses in BLM, a tiny little bit of timber, not really much, a little bit up in the northwest, but most of it is minerals, hard rock minerals. Oil and gas leasing is probably the biggest program. Grazing is a massive program, and then recreation, is just huge on BLM lands, and it's a little less developed than than Forest Service, a lot less developed than Park Service apps.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a lot out there, a lot going on, and they have conservation lands now, which is really it's national monuments, wilderness areas, national conservation areas, all the kind of more special protected areas. And the reason BLM manages those lands is because at some point, it was really during the Clinton era when Bruce Babbitt was the Secretary of the Interior, said, hey man, if you want to truly be a multiple use agency and manage conservation and protected lands, you can't just keep giving it to the Park Service to do. You have to do it yourself. And that was when the National Landscape Conservation System came into being, and the BLM really took on the charge of managing conservation properties as well. So that's sort of the down and dirty,
Sure.
very simplistic history of
Oh,
BLM.
no, I think that was perfect, because I just know when I talk to students in class, right, that it's one of those things that like, what's the difference between BLM and the Forest Service? And you're like, well, you know, like you said, there's a lot of similarities, but there's like you also said is like this is the agency that manages more land than anybody else. And so when I talk to them about jobs too, they're like, what about the BLM? You should absolutely consider the BLM. It's but anyway,
No, you're right, man. Definitely. And it's funny. I would just suggest to your students, like, there's some really good land management history books out there. And they're probably like, oh God, that's the last thing we need is another history book or textbook. But, there's some great ones. I don't have it in here right now, but, These American Lands is a good one. And
yeah,
it's in order to really understand federal land management, you have to understand the history of the United
yeah,
States. There's just no other way to do it.
right,
So, and for me, being a little bit of a history nerd, they're fun reads too.
sure,
So,
yeah. So recently you've migrated over to the Forest Service. So we're talking about the BLM, but you've recently made a hop, skip, and a jump over to the Forest Service. So again, I'll have the same question: what prompted that move, and where are you at? What made you do that, or what prompted that?
yeah, no, great question. And that's the other thing that I think is important to know is once you're in federal service and working for a land management agency, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for growth, for mobility, for advancement, for knowledge. That's one thing I'll say that the BLM and the Forest Service do really well is they train people. And again, there's just always opportunity. And the so at BLM, that position I was in was a GS12. That's the grade scale. And this job here with the Forest Service, the trails position at the regional office came open, and it's a GS13. So that was a promotion opportunity for me to make that change. So that was one thing. The other thing is, Forest Service just does business a little differently, and in this region here, the Rocky Mountain region, is very big, very complex region for the Forest Service with an astronomical amount of recreational use going on. And that really appealed to me to get into the agency that's just big. Everything we do is just bigger, Even though it's a smaller agency in general, the recreation component here in Rocky Mountains is much bigger. So that really appealed to me. That and the fact that had the opportunity to work with a couple of friends, and my current boss is an old colleague and friend of mine, and really sharp guy. And I just was looking forward to. I was hoping for an opportunity to work with them and just to continue to learn, to be
Yeah,
frank with you. So that combined with a promotion opportunity and all that is what kind of drew me to the position. So it's a bit weird. I've been in there about a year and a half now, and most of that has been under COVID. I was in the office for 4 months before COVID hit, which proves challenging only in the sense that a lot of my job as a program manager, both with the BLM and the Forest Service, is really about understanding what's going on in the field and doing what I can to empower and help the folks in the field, get them more money, whatever it is, get them more resources. And in order to do that, I have to build relationships with people. And it's been a lot harder to build relationships virtually than it is to go out and get on the trail and hike with somebody, or ride a mountain bike, or just kick the dirt around,
yeah,
And that's a lot of what I do in the field season, is just travel to different ranger districts or field offices and meet people. So hoping that'll change this summer, as
yeah,
things loosen up and get vaccinated. So, but yeah, and it's also the funnest part of the job. So,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
but did that get to the question? I couldn't remember.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
So being that you're in this position now, what are some of the, I know you just talked about into COVID and whatnot. So maybe thinking about, maybe this summer when you get back in the field, hopefully is, what are the funnest parts of what you do now? What are your favorite parts?
Yeah, great question. I think just truthfully, one of the funnest parts is just in the recreation world. Living in the recreation world, I just tend to think, and I'm biased, of course, because I'm a recreation person with a recreation background and education, but I just think rec folks tend to be the easiest to work with, the easiest to collaborate. So let me back up. To answer your question, collaborating with my coworkers.
Yeah.
That really is one of the funnest parts of the job. And by that, I mean, the rec folks that I've worked with throughout my 10 years in the federal government they're just some of the most dedicated, intelligent, smart, well-rounded people, and they're just easy to work with. And more than anything, they're solution oriented. If people
Yeah.
come to rec folks in the field all the time with problems, and they're always solution oriented. So that to me is always one of the funnest things about the job, just getting to really collaborate with people, recognizing that I'm never the smartest person in the room, because I'm not. I can always learn something from somebody else. So it's those things that I really enjoy a lot, just that collaboration with my coworkers and partners. We work so much with our partners, our external partners, people, that come from user groups, be it, motorized, non-motorized, people that live in gateway communities, conservation groups, all that. Working with those partners to find solutions is really satisfying as
Yeah.
well. So,
Well, so, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, let's just say you had your dream job, what would your dream job be?
yeah. Well, that's a great question. Um, I always say my dream job would be to be a location scout for a movie studio.
For a movie
Um,
studio?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
They
yeah.
say, hey, we want the perfect high alpine lake with this. And, all right, I'll go find that. I can find that for you.
Yeah.
Um, I always thought that'd be fun. But in hindsight, I also think had I not just been in such a rush to declare political science as my major, maybe I would have explored some other things and like photography or something. A dream job to me would be a travel photographer.
Yeah.
That would just be awesome, I think. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, either one of those, whether you're a scout or a photographer, you're seeing some cool places, right?
yeah, exactly. I guess the theme there is being able to travel to see cool stuff.
Yeah. Before I let you go, if a student or a young professional is watching this and they think, oh man, this guy's kind of led his own creative path to get to where he is, right? And some of what he's done, I think, sounds pretty cool. Is there any pieces of advice for young professional students that are kind of looking at you, thinking they might want to be in a similar career path or do some similar things?
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things. One is just always don't underestimate the power of your network, the power of your contacts. I mentioned that earlier, and that really, in so many ways, has led me to positions that I'm in now, and that I have been in. Um, just put your best foot forward. Be your best self, and really just develop a good contact. And I guess what that all comes down to is just build relationships.
Yeah.
Really just good relationships that are meaningful and have intent behind them. And be yourself and don't be someone you're not. And that'll pay dividends down the road. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Um, and then there's some other smaller things, just obviously be intentional with your words and your writing. And, for me, a big thing is grammar and spelling and all that. You wouldn't believe how many times in resumes I've seen spelling errors or,
Yeah.
it leaves a bad impression right off the bat. And you only get one chance at a first impression.
Yeah.
So even if that's a resume, resumes aren't everything, but just make sure you run spell check and
Right.
stuff like that. And the other thing is be flexible, particularly if you're thinking of a career in federal government. There's a lot of avenues into federal government right now that didn't exist when I was around. There's a lot of opportunities to come on through youth corps associations or through different internships that will give you some non-competitive hiring authority with the federal government, which basically means you don't have to compete with the rest of the public. You compete just with the pool of employees who are already with the federal government.
Yeah.
And that is huge. And so if you can be a little bit flexible, be willing to move to a remote town for your first job, like Meeker or Tonopah, Nevada or something, a place where most people might not want to live, so there might be fewer people applying for that job, you're just going to improve your chances. And
Yeah.
what that'll do is that'll get you in the door. Go live in a small town, learn about a different area, learn about a different way of life, meet some different people, spend a couple years, learning some stuff. And then once you have your foot in the door, it's a lot easier to move around at that point. So, those are just a couple of pieces of advice I would put out there.
Sure. So before I let you go, you talked about you worked with Superfund sites. Did you ever heard of Tar Creek Superfund site? It's in Northeast Oklahoma.
I don't think so. No.
It's I think it's a lead contamination site. I mean, when you get time, you might want to check it out. It's Tar Creek. It's in Pitcher, Oklahoma. The only reason I know it because I grew up in Northeast Oklahoma, and it was fairly close. And I've got a friend that's a police officer up in a town near there, and we talk about it every now and then. People trying to you know, some dark tourism folks trying to get in there and check it out, right? So.
Right.
But anyway, I didn't know if you had, it's pretty interesting and scary and all that, just like a lot of those other sites are I'm sure. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, you hit on something there, which is funny, which kind of scratches that entrepreneurial itch that I still have, is combined with recreation, is the world is people's oyster, man. There's so much opportunity out there to just think a little bit differently, a little bit creatively as it relates to recreation. I mean, we can never predict what the next big thing is going to be, right? Who would have thought e-bikes was it? And we don't know what's next. So, but my point to that is, it tells me there's always opportunity for
yeah,
someone with a creative mind and some determination to say, hey, what about dark tourism? What about super fun site tourism? Something
right,
like that. You just never know, man.
yeah. Yeah. So check it out, man. Check it out when you get an opportunity.
Yeah, I
Uh,
will. Tar Creek. Got
yeah, Tar Creek. Beyond that, Chad, thank you so much for taking time today, visiting with me. I sincerely appreciate it. I'll let you go, and I'll let you enjoy that big snow or the nice weather you're having. I guess you said it was starting to melt, so maybe it's not a lot of snow left, but I'll let you go enjoy it. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem, Mark. Mike, thanks. I really appreciate you having me on here, man. This is
Yeah,
great. It's good to see you again, too.
you as well.